4 July 2020, and I'm joined by Mr. Terence Simbi, the author of the book, Zimbabwe, Installing a True Democratic State. How are you, sir?
Yes, how are you, Mr. Gambakwe? How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. And I would like us to continue from last week, where we were talking about the situation in Malawi. There were reports this week that the former president of Malawi, Mr. Peter Mutharika, has looked for asylum in South Africa. Is this correct?
Like you said, I've also seen these media reports, and I cannot confirm that. But this is the issue which I want us to discuss about today, the issue of the transfer of power from one administration to the next administration, and the events which happened just after the pronouncement of the results in Malawi, which was when the pronouncement was made on the 27th. And before that pronouncement, we had seen that already Peter Mutharika had moved out of State House, of the State House in Malawi. And we are going to discuss how this is dangerous, especially when we look at democracies in Africa, when we compare them to the United States of America, where there's a longer period after an election pronouncement and the assumption of the new president to office. So this is the issue we have to concentrate on today. But I've seen the media reports, but those reports have not yet confirmed them.
Okay, I also saw some Malawians tearing down road signs in a highway in Malawi. Are people saying they were not happy with Peter Mutharika and everything that had to do with him must be removed?
Well, this is the procedure which is wrong after an election, which happens in Africa, especially here in Southern Africa and Southern Africa, where we can compare Zimbabwe and Malawi and compare it to the United States of America. There are key processes which happen from one administration to the next, which I admire from the Americans, and how they transfer power from one administration to the next. After an election, and the result is even before the result is pronounced, the two main candidates who were involved in the election in the American sense, the loser is the first one who calls the winner of that election. Then he goes to the public and says, "We contested in this election, but unfortunately, we did not win this election." Then the winner of that election then comes in. Then he also says, "I received a call from the loser, and he has accepted the result of the election. And now it's now the duty of us to unite the country after this election. And there is a time period which is substantive enough for the nation to be healed after a divisive election." We are not saying there should not be an element of competition. There should be elements of competition in any election, but the procedure of healing the nation is much more clearer in the American sense, where they give it a time period which is long enough that even an incumbent president who has lost the election, he remains president for a period of about 70 days, where he will be still serving as the president. He will be still respected as the president. Then after those 70 days, that's where now we have a transfer of power from one administration to the next. Even in this period also, there's also an issue where the new coming president will also create a team which will assist him in the governance. And there will be a formal transition period where the new team will be now working with the old administration, doing a proper handover and takeover procedure. But in Africa, we don't do this. Once a person wins an election, he's already sworn in to be the president. He's already starting appointing ministers. He's already starting revoking the policies which are already there in the previous administration, which is a dangerous precedent. And this, we cannot also talk of political situation. We can also talk at company level, where a new employee comes in a company. Already, he starts changing things which are in this company without him understanding the procedures of government, without understanding the processes which take him to government. So we are setting ourselves for dangerous presidents, and especially if we concentrate on, especially on the Zimbabwean side, where President Emerson Mnangagwa assumed office. Yes, he claims to say it's a new administration, but the staff which is filled in that administration, the people who are the key players in the new administration are from the old administration. So there's not enough time for the president to prepare, because there's a difference between an election and running an administration. So very often, new presidents just come in and they appoint people who were on their teams in winning that election, rather than people who are going to administer the government. So we can see it even in the American sense, where we see Donald Trump. The people we appointed, who were from the campaign, did not survive for long periods, because there's a difference between winning an election and governing a country, and it needs time. So there's not that time frame where the new president will prepare for running government.
Okay. In the case of Malawi, is
Yes.
Peter Mutharika not leaving the country because he plans to challenge the election? Is it not possible?
Yeah, it might be possible. It might be possible that he's planning to challenge, especially with the fact which we discussed last year of some of the issues which were involved, as the result which was in the first round is quite similar to that. Maybe the issue in Malawi was just an issue of interpreting the constitution, because under Section 80 of their constitution, they say that the majority of an electorate in an election is supposed to be the one who's declared what the president. So the interpretation of this clause was the key issue in the Malawian sense, what to mean what the majority means. So in previous elections, they just used the first past the post, where the winner is just determined by the person who has just gotten the majority. So in this sense, the Constitutional Court, when it allowed the election, they said the majority is supposed to be 50 plus 1. So that's where the whole issue in the Malawian issue sense. But they could have done this of forming a government without having an election, as we see that the results are similar. These are, and this is an example which is found in many other countries, where even if the first round does not provide a clear winner who has gotten 50%, but the first person who has the majority in that first past the post is given the chance to form a government from other coalition partners. If he fails, then the next person who has gotten the second share of the vote is given also an opportunity to form government. This is what they do in Israel. So it was not necessary for them to go through another election, but it could have been solved by having a situation where they would give each other a chance on forming that government. And if they failed, then that's when now they would have gone for a rerun. So that's the whole issue in the Malawian sense. But this issue of contestation after an election, of trying to change the rules after an election, is quite similar in Africa. That's where we have the situation. But if we look at the United States of America, there is that culture of accepting that we compete. Yes, we compete, but after the competition, people have to come together and unite. But this cultural thing, I'll give you an example which is simple, which many people can relate. Before the lockdown, I went to my mother's place. Then we were watching an American program where young kids were engaged in the competition. They call it American Dance-Off, and this can be similar to a program also called American Idols, where people come in and sing. So after they sing, these young Americans, they are judged, or people vote according to the performance which have happened there. So after they finish performing, or the results are being announced, everyone comes on stage. Then the results are announced to the contestants there. You have won, you have lost. Both of them are on stage. There is a lesson which is being taught, and my mother said after this, there's a lesson which is being taught to young American children. They are being taught to compete. But after the competition, when the results are announced, when both of them are on stage, the winner will know how to celebrate in the face of the loser. The loser will also clap hands for the winner, and both will hug, and they will move away from that stage. So that lesson was just a lesson which my mother said, this lesson we are not learning in Africa. In Africa, I'll just give you another example. Before the lockdown, there was a soccer match which happened in Baba Fields. Highlanders was playing FC Platinum. Highlanders was at home. But in that match, in the 80th minute, Highlanders was already 2-0 down. But because of this situation, the Highlanders supporters who were at home started throwing stones inside the stadium. So this is the difference in culture we have, that we go in a competition, we know that there are two results. It's either you win, it's either you lose. But when we lose in our senses, Africans, we start throwing stones into the stadium. And this is a major cultural issue we have in democracy, that we compete, but after that competition, we don't accept that there are these outcomes which can come, and that is too bad for our future generation. So as advocates for democracy, we have to start concentrating on the future generation rather than these people who are already in the political scene, who would never accept any result which has happened. Because in Zimbabwe, we can see this in the by-election. We see that the result which was there in the original election is continuously repeated, and people don't accept the results, but they only accept results which are favorable to them, but they do not accept results which are not in their side. So we have a serious cultural issue in the terms of acceptance of results in Africa and democracy in Africa.
Okay, let's look at the previous presidents of Malawi. We said
Yes.
There's Joyce Banda,
Yes.
and then there's Peter Mutharika now. Where is Joyce Banda now?
Joyce Mbanda was part of the coalition of Lazarus Chakwera and Saulo Chalima. So this coalition had 9. This is the other fact we do not. It had 9 other all the other political parties which lost to Peter Mutharika united under what they call the Tonse coalition. So all these other presidents are in that camp. Peter Mutharika was able to unite with one other partner, which is they call it UDF, the one of for another former president's son, Bagili Muluzi. He had his son called Atro. So they formed the coalition as there were 2 in that coalition. The party GPP of President Peter Mutharika and of former President Peter Mutharika and Atro Muluzi were against all the other candidates which contested in the first round. So,
Okay. So no one has ever had to seek asylum after an election in Malawi?
No, Joyce Banda sought for, she was actually in exile all this period before the election, before the previous election, because she was running away from the Cashgate scandal, which we were talking about in the first issue. So she ran away from that. So she was in asylum in other countries there. Yeah.
Okay, so does it mean it's almost a rule that if a president of a former president of Malawi loses an election, then they have to leave the country? Is there a history of this happening?
That's the history we have in Africa. That we are not bold enough to create government system which question leaders when they are in power. But after power now, we start seeing all these prosecutions happening. We can see it even in South Africa right now. Nobody at the guts inside the party the South African party, ANC, to challenge Jacob Zuma when he was still in office. But after office now, we now see these prosecutions starting to come. Official handover ceremony from one administration to the next, which we miss in Africa. So former presidents will continue to be persecuted in Africa. Court cases will start to be on. The court proceedings will start to haunt them when they left office. But we don't have systems where we can really challenge them when they are in office. So I think it's it's very coward behavior we have in Africa, where we attack someone after leaving office rather than having systems which really put him to check right now when they are in office. The other issue of this rushed period, the implication it has, is that there is no time to really form a team which will run the administration. You see in Zimbabwe, where we had a transfer of power from the old administration to, they say the old dispensation, but now we are in the new dispensation. But one of the failings of that is that the people who still populate the so-called new administration, especially when we talk of the ranks of government, the civil servants involved in the center, in the inner circles of the Mnangagwa administration. These are people from the old, people like George Arab, who represent the old government, the old administration of President Mugabe. So there's nothing new. It's not a new dispensation at all. So the president can come in and say, this is a listening presidency. This is a president which is born out of listening. We have to listen to various political actors. But when the communication or the spokesperson is from the old administration, which was arrogant, a person like John Tiaramba was arrogant in the previous administration, he does not listen to others. So what does he do? He goes into the Twitter platform. He forms a ghost account called Jamboa. He starts attacking fellow political actors like Padma, calling names like Nyembes. So that does not reflect an administration which is a listening administration when we have such people who are from the old. So this time of the transition gives a new coming person the time to really prepare the new administration. So in Malawi, you see that right now, with this short period, where on the 27th of June, that's where the election pronouncement was made. Already on the 28th of June, the president was sworn in. 4 July, he plans to say that I'll have my full cabinet. 6 July, it's now the inauguration ceremony. That's a very short period of time where you see, and one of the things people should know that any administration or any work which happens is determined by the first early stages of it. Once you make mistakes at the first, it will be difficult for you to change them. So administration should be given equal amount of time, a long amount of time, which they should prepare the incoming. I don't know why we have this rush we have to form government, this rush to say now that we are now the president. We should really prepare, because there's a difference between winning and running the administration of a country.
Okay, now you have mentioned the issue of Idi Mnangagwa coming into office.
Yes.
Can we also talk about the issue of previous presidents refusing to accept the incoming president? In Zimbabwe, there's a culture of not wanting to hand over, even if ZANU-PF loses. Is it not also a problem that there's a desire to stay in power, even if the current governments have lost?
Yes, we'll go back to the American example, which I can talk about, and the importance the founding presidents in that I can give you an example of America and South Africa. The founding presidents in both these presidents, we have in America, we have George Washington. In South Africa, we have Nelson Mandela. These were the ones which gave birth to those nations. Similarly to the issue of Malawi and Zimbabwe. In Malawi, we had Banda, who was the founding president there. And here we have Robert Mugabe. But the difference now is the presidents which the American and the South African presidents had to their country. Because they almost had the same unanimous support which Mugabe had in the early years. They could easily have ran for more than 2 terms. But George Washington decided to say, well, I should hand over power to younger generation. Similarly, in South Africa, Nelson Mandela could have easily gone for another term. But he decided to say, let me hand over power to younger generation of leaders. But the case now with Zimbabwe and Malawi is these 2 founding presidents who hanged on to power for long periods. That warranted a coup to happen now. But you see now with these 2 countries, Zimbabwe, already our democratic maturing has been affected by the founding presidents due to the lack of desire to hand over power to future generation of leaders. This is this subject I deal with it in my book, especially in chapter 8, where I talk about Zimbabwe's succession, Kwagumaya, and Nelson Chamisa's options.
Okay, so I think we've covered the issues in Malawi. You said next week they are going to be doing the inauguration without giving enough time for the previous president to hand over to the current and new president-elect.
Yes.
So there's no time where there's a president-elect and the old president.
Yes.
Right, let's go to the issue of George Charamba. I want us to go deeper in that issue. Idi Mnangagwa even appointed some ministers that were in the old government of Mugabe.
Yes.
Is that not a precedent in Malawi? Is it possible is there a minister that has moved from government to government, or a president-elect only appoints his own people?
Well, in the Zimbabwean sense now, the constitution stipulates the number who are to constitute cabinet. You see, in Zimbabwe we say that a person who has to be in cabinet must be a member of parliament, except for 5 other appointments. So Idi Mnangagwa, when he transferred there, he was tied to those issues that you are supposed to appoint people to cabinet who are members of parliament. So in Malawi, you can pick from other quarters, except this person must only not be a government official, must not be a senator, must not be a government official, and but he can pick from a variety of sectors. Even if you look at the appointments he has made right now, the new president, these are people who have been serving in other capacities which do not have to do with being a member of parliament. So in Zimbabwe, Idi Mnangagwa was tied to having these and this issue of George Charamba and other senior government officials. It comes in with the experience. Even if you look at the appointments which have been made by the new president of Malawi, these are people who have been in government already. So because of the lack of the end of a takeover, you are forced to just concentrate on a few set of people because of this issue of saying experience is key. So Idi Mnangagwa was tied to just maintain the previous people who were running the affairs of the Mugabe administration, because there's no time to really teach a new person who's coming into office the running of government.
Okay, I think let us conclude by looking at the relationship between the opposition and the government in power. Is this not what is causing this issue in Africa, that there's an antagonistic relationship? For example, in Zimbabwe, the opposition is saying you're abducting our people, you're killing our people, you are responsible for installing Tokozani Kubi. Is that not, sorry.
Okay.
Is that not the reason why when the government of, let's say, Nelson Chamisa comes into office, they want to say, Idim Nangagwa into people, go out quick, don't waste, don't stay around because you disturb us?
Well, it's a cultural issue. I think we have that we don't know how to compete and how to move on after the competition is happened. And I think in the next edition, we are going to discuss about some of the constitutional issues which are there, which tie in members of parliament or opposition parties to make certain decisions because of the whip, because of the recall provisions which are there. So it makes it be like it's this team versus the other team, rather than we are creating a system where we are discussing about governance issues. So yeah, even if you look at the division which are even in the MDC itself, it's an issue of saying this team versus this team. So in Africa, we have not really seen, we have not really created governance systems which really deliver for the good of the public, but rather in political parties we have created animals who have interest, and as they divide, you really see that it's really now an issue. And then the first clip we did 2 years ago, I talked about the reason that I'm political, but I do not desire to join political parties. Why? Because political parties right now, if I was a member of MDC or even if I was a member of Sanofi, what would I be forced to do? I'll be just forced to draw allegiance to say I'm for Chamisa or I'm for Kupe, rather than for government issues, rather than for the development of the communities which I'm there to represent. So right now, this is the situation where MPs in Sanofi, MPs in MDC are forced to choose either to say we align for Chamisa or we say we align for Kupe. But no policy issue is being discussed today. So this is the problem with political parties. They bring in the issue of animals who are capturing the governance system or capturing our governance institutions for their desires and ends. So I think in the next edition we are going to discuss about governance issues, where we are talking about this cause, and if this governance system we have really responds to the people, really responds to the vital issues of people in the grassroots.
Okay, and then now we are in 2020, we've passed half of the year. Yes. Chamisa still hasn't accepted that he lost the election. What should happen now? Should Chamisa accept that he lost the election?
It's about major cultural issues with these issues.
Yes.
These issues. Major cultural issues. So I've said it in previous forums which have even appeared, that we have a culture where we, even us as the ordinary people in Zimbabwe, we place too much trust on a single day, which is an election, which takes almost something like 1 to 6 days. But we forget about the living after that election. So this cycle, I can tell me that 2 years before an election, we are talking about reform. What are the reforms which we are going to make for the coming election? The election happens, we dispute it, and we dispute it for 2 years. Just like what has happened right now, we are still disputing the previous election. But now we are coming to a period where we are now disputing ourselves as political parties, and that will take almost a year. That issue of the fights between the Chamisas, the Itim Nangagwas and the internal factions of ZANU-PF which are there, it will take us a year. Then after we finish here, maybe in 2021, we'll be now concentrating on the next election now. We are saying reforms. So it's a cycle which I have seen, which is in our politics, where it's all centered on one day, and we are not really concentrating on the governance. How are we going to run the country in this period between 5 years, between one election to the next? What are we going to do to live in harmony? What are the issues? How are we going to relate as the opposition and the ruling party? How are we going to deliver for the for the people in the constituencies? So everyone in Zimbabwe concentrate on a single day, an election day, and forget everything else that the living is after the election. The real battle is after the election. How are we going to relate to each other?
Okay, this has been a very interesting discussion. Mr. Terence Simbi, author of the book, Zimbabwe Installing a Democratic State. And I think you've covered how this book relates to what we're discussing. What would you say, in a nutshell, are the improvements that needs to happen in Malawi? For example, I heard that they are going to appoint 30 ministers now. You mentioned last week that this is going to be a problem. What improvements do you suggest should happen in Malawi?
Well, as you saw with the maps, I think in Malawi they have to improve in terms of creating governance systems which respond to all the different regions which are there. Because if you see the map, it's regionally based. The support of either candidate, all the candidates there was regionally based. So they should really create a government system which responds to the regions. The regions must have power they must have a devolved governance systems where regions must take charge of their own operations. So tribalism comes in when we see a map like that, but when we see people from different regions being imposed on the governance of regions which they are not popular, which the governing party is not popular. So that's the thing which I have to, which I can recommend to the Malawian people, even in Zimbabwe ourselves, where we should concentrate on devolution laws, where people in the constituencies, people in the areas, in the regions, in our 10 regions, should be given more power to decide on their own issues, rather than having the central government, which might be in Zimbabwe. You continuously say that it's now a Shuma or related government, but now these tribes are now being imposed in every region. So these are the improvements we can have in our governance systems, where people in different locations can be given the chance to really concentrate on their own governance structures. So the same recommendation I give to the Malawi is the same recommendation I can give to the Zimbabweans.
Right, Mr. Terence Simbi, thank you very much for joining me again today. This week has been a very interesting topic, and I think what we need to do is maybe look at other elections. In recent elections in Botswana, there was a recent election in South Africa, in Mozambique, now in Malawi, and these are all different, but I'm sure there's something in common.
Yes, you can see even in Botswana. You see, the new coming president was trying to prosecute the former king.
Yes.
So it's a culture on the African continent.
Yes, the court case actually started on Wednesday, where there's $10 billion that was allegedly stolen by Ian Kama and his people to do a coup. So I'm sure that
it's Africa.
Yes. So I think let's continue to talk about the politics, but I'm very interested next week maybe to come back and talk about the situation in Zimbabwe. There's a stalemate in Zimbabwe.
Yes. Yeah, the recall provision. Yeah.
Yes, we're moving into the next election with a stalemate. And Mnangagwa's government has not been able to do much because they've been dealing with these firefighting issues to do with legitimacy. Right. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
Yeah, nothing else. Nothing else. We'll deal with in the next edition.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Terence Simbi. We'll talk again next week.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.